No, with no studio that I have ever worked for has ever done. We have to stop and you look after the problem and we look after this and then we get back to it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Hot Sandwich, the podcast about sex workers and sex industry. Today with me, I have Jasun Mark. Hello, Jason.
Hello.
Breaking the ice, like with everybody, I just asked to all my guests to just share your social network where we can find you on Twitter, Instagram, whatever.
My Twitter is Jasun Mark XXX. Remember to spell Jason with a U. My TikTok, which is probably my most sort of successful account, is just Jasun Mark. And my Instagram is Jasun Mark Film.
And of course, we're going to go back to your TikTok because I'm super curious about that.
It's funny. I never wanted really to be a star. And I don't think I'm a star, but you know what I mean? Like, I never wanted to be the one who was the sort of center of attention. TikTok just kind of wound up becoming this weird way for me to just kind of work through my boredom and work through my frustrations during the beginning of the pandemic. And TikTok wound up being just it was the distraction that I needed at that point.
How did you start? When did you start in the industry? I know, and tell me if I'm wrong, you start like a web developer for a website called Bedfellow, something like that?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Since then, how did it evolve into what you are now?
I had studied film at York in Toronto, and a lot of producers in the industry at that point, you know, that was sort of the early 2000s, finding an editor who could cut stuff up quickly and deliver it on time and have it done well. It wasn't easy. So I wound up getting a lot of work that way. And then I decided one day that I was sick and tired of living in Toronto where it was just too cold to ride my motorcycle in December. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to see if I can get a job in California. So I was on the phone and I had a job landed in about a day. So that's how I got down here. And I continued to work for Fratmen for a few years. I was a video editor, and I did a lot of their affiliate program and marketing. And I, was part producer, and I finally started to be able to direct some stuff there. And when I decided that I did want to be a full-time director, I gave Jake Cruz a call and asked him if he could use me. And he was looking for someone with my skills. I was looking for somebody who was willing to let me start directing. And so it was a match. Really, I worked for him for another 3 more years. Mm-hmm. And then I decided I was going to go freelance and just work for everybody and travel. And I thought it sounded like a lot of fun to just go. And I wound up getting a few jobs, and I was down in San Diego, and then I was in Las Vegas. And one weekend I was in Key West. I was directing for Dominic Ford. Okay. And that was a whole lot of fun. That was a really good shoot. But while I was there, I got a phone call from Brian Mills from Titan Men saying, "Hey, we've got a project that we're doing next week. You want to come hang out in Palm Springs with us for a week?" And I was, sure, yeah, no problem. A week later, I was there and shooting, and it was with Francois Sagat, which was quite an experience. And at the end of that week, Brian came up to me and said, "Listen, do you want to just come back to San Francisco with us and finish the movie?" And I was like, sure, absolutely. Yeah. And they wound up hiring me on full time at the end of that. So I just kind of went, all right.
Most of your career, you were like behind the scene, right? And tell me if I'm wrong, but recently you decided also doing some kind of content for yourself?
So 10 years ago when I worked with Jake Cruz, we were doing a contest called Be Jake for a Day, where viewers and members of the site could do a scene with one of our performers. And Jake came up with the idea of, why don't we have just like a regular Joe come in off the street and perform in one of our scenes? And I was like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And then Jake said, as a way to promote it, why don't you do it? And I'm like, wait, what? And it was just a massage scene. So I was fully clothed and I did the whole massage thing, and it was a really big hit. So we wound up doing a few of those. I did one scene with Adam Russo as a favor to Anthony Duran. He wanted me to perform, and I'm like, all right. But then I had no intention of performing, but I wound up in a lot of the behind the scenes content. And then just recently I had started an OnlyFans, which I do still have. And that the whole idea behind that was that it was just going to be like the behind the scenes, it was going to be making of, it was going to be how-to videos, it was going to be just like a glimpse behind the curtain and show people how we make these movies, because people are really fascinated by it. And it was really successful. And then people started saying, hey, remember that scene that you were in? Can you post that? So I called up Jake and I was like, hey, do you mind if I post some of those old scenes? And he's like, go ahead, I don't care.
Yeah.
So I did. And then people were starting to ask to see me in scenes again. And I was like, at first going, oh, you don't want to see my geriatric ass. Less than 2 months ago, I was just hanging out with a buddy of mine, and he hauls out the camera and we start shooting and we start fooling around, and suddenly I have all of this content on my cell phone. It wasn't really planned. And I just went, why don't we just post this on our OnlyFans? And he said, okay. And so now people are asking to see more. So then I had to go to my husband and sort of explain, so this is what's happening. And he's like, I know, Jason, I follow you on Twitter. So my husband found out via Twitter that I was making content again.
That's nice. That's wonderful. Do you enjoy being a performer, or you prefer stay behind the scene?
I prefer to stay behind the scenes, honestly. I mean, I really love editing. I really love directing. I love shooting. I love the whole production thing.
Yeah.
But actually performing, it's been fun. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to keep it going, but you know, it's definitely been a fun experience.
Do you enjoy watching porn, or as soon as you see a porn, it's like, oh, look at this, it's a bad scene, or look at the angle, it's terrible? Or
yeah, I'm hypercritical of bad.
Right?
I've had to learn how to wrap my head around a lot of the new OnlyFans content that's intentionally poorly made. I have a lot more trouble watching my own movies because
that's the question.
Like generally I have to wait about 4 or 5 years before I can actually enjoy watching it. Because otherwise I just spend all of my time going, oh God, I should have done that differently. Oh, I didn't like that very well. Oh, that edit was terrible.
But eventually you arrive to a point that actually,
eventually,
I
so
can enjoy.
To the point now where I can look at all the Titan stuff, like even the last few movies that we made, I can now watch those and go,
okay, well, that's it makes sense. I mean, I can definitely see why you can enjoy. How do you cast porn actors in your movies? I mean, there's like
oh, I don't know. I honestly have no idea.
Okay.
I generally am not part of that discussion.
Okay.
Or if I am, it's, hey, we're gonna cast this movie. Can you throw out some names? And I'll throw out a few names, and the casting people will try to, but half the time it's not possible. So
okay. Do you before like receive a script of the movie, and then you try to cast something that actually could be fitting that script, or it's like vice versa, you just before thinking about, I want this actor, so I'm gonna try to make some script for him?
It totally depends on the studio. It depends on the budget that you have. It depends on how much time you've got to prepare for it. When we're doing Trailer Trash Boys, I will dash off the script on the back of a piece of paper and hand it to the guys 5 minutes before we start rolling.
Oh, wow.
With some movies, you've got a script weeks in advance. With some of the Titan movies that we did that were pretty heavy with story and dialogue, we had the scripts to the guys weeks in advance so they could learn their lines. So
usually it's like depends on the budget on the studio,
how much the studio cares about the script. Sometimes they'll just give you like a rough outline. They'll say, have them in a car talking about something, and then they have sex. Like, and you're like,
I don't know exactly how to put this, but are you like a fully micromanagement?
Yeah, you have to be really careful. I mean, obviously when you're directing, you need to be able to guide the action along, and you'll have to say things like move your hand because the hand is in the way. But if you're going to turn into a square dance caller, okay, turn around and tuck it here and tumble up there and stick it in there, and then turn around and kiss it here and then stick it in the face. I know a few directors who just yell and scream and talk through the entire movie.
Oh, wow.
And on top of the fact that it's torture to have to clean that audio out, so I always feel bad for the editors, especially when it's me. But it also just takes away any of the spontaneity. Usually I will let the guys have their fun, and we'll kind of plan out what positions we're going to be in, and then I'll just say, okay, in 20 seconds when it feels right, just move on to that next position, and the cameras are therefore ready to follow them into the new position. But, or like when you have a director who's, literally a square dance caller, move your hand here and turn around and put gears and stick it there and this and blah, blah, blah and all that. And then the performers are just, they're scared to do anything. And it just it winds up looking like a zombie movie.
Okay. How much website like OnlyFans, Just for Fans, whatever, changed the porn industry? And how much affected the studio?
It's been really good for us. The performers now have a much bigger understanding of what the industry is about.
Okay.
They have a much better grasp on how the back end of the business works. So they're much more open to working with you in a sort of promotional marketing kind of way. A lot of the performers are able to support themselves doing their OnlyFans, and then they use our studio movies to kind of promote their own brand. They'll show up with their game face on. They're totally ready because they're understanding that if this movie goes well, people will become fans and will seek out their OnlyFans. So that's been a really big thing. One of the other things is that we'll tell the guys, we're going to have a fan content day. So we're going to fly you guys all out here for 5 days and we're going to shoot all of this stuff. But when you're not shooting with us, if you guys want to shoot your fan content back at the hotel, do it. That's just fine. It's happened with Trailer Trash Boys. We'll actually pay the models in a scene. Like we'll say, we're going to shoot this scene, we're going to hold it, but we'll give you a copy of it that you can release on your OnlyFans. So and I mean, we're not using that instead of actually paying them money, but we're sweetening the pot with it. So it's been really great. I think a lot of us were really scared of it at first because they're not going to want to perform in mainstream stuff. And that's happened with some performers. Most of them have looked at it as a sort of secondary side hustle. And it's been really good.
Is it true that the bottoms are paid less than the tops? Oh, okay.
No. I shouldn't say no with absolute no studio that I have ever worked for has ever done. Every studio that I've worked for and was aware of how much people were getting paid, they're all getting paid the same amount.
Let's say that you release a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Do you watch the feedback of the user about what they say about the movies?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I do pay attention to the fan feedback. Absolutely. I don't always take it too seriously. I don't take it too personally. Sometimes I think the criticisms are valid and I'll try to learn from them. And then sometimes you're just going to have that asshole who just hates you and has no reason to hate you, but has just decided that you're the villain in their own personal soap opera. And they're going to attack anything that you do, regardless of how good it is or not.
Do you listen also the feedback or whatever the reviews about, I would like to see this actor, I would like to see this actor with this one?
For sure. And people, we'll have a new guy show up and people will start saying, oh, I'd love to see this guy and him together. And you'll try to make that happen. You know, I mean,
that's nice.
Yeah, listen, the people who are watching and buying and supporting you have to listen to what they want and you have to give the people what they want.
Do you release your bloopers somewhere or just no, you take it for yourself?
So I will only release bloopers if they are funny and they make the star look cool.
Okay.
If the blooper is in any way going to embarrass a performer, I won't release that.
Okay, now back on your TikTok channel.
Okay.
I'm super curious because you said just for be able to survive the pandemic. But then now it's definitely a huge hit. I don't know how many followers you have over there, but I would say quite a lot. I mean, you always appear on my timeline. Are you having fun? There's something you want to share about the thing?
It's funny. I mean, like I say, I originally just started doing that TikTok as a way of just kind of dealing with my own boredom. At the beginning of the pandemic, my husband and I lived in downtown Los Angeles. We lived in a warehouse. And, so it was this huge, gigantic, cavernous space that we were in. I had to do something. And so TikTok wound up being a really great distraction for me. And one day somebody recognized me and started asking questions about the adult industry. And so I started answering them and I realized that suddenly I had discovered my niche. People tell me anyway that they really appreciate
Yeah.
how kind of blunt and straightforward I am. Sometimes people ask really embarrassing questions, and some people are just like, I've always wanted to make porn, but I'm afraid what would happen if I wasn't 100% cleaned out? Like what would happen? And of course, if you're not 100% cleaned out, that means that you're like just about all the other guys. We have to stop, and you look after the problem, and we look after this, and then we get back to it. But a lot of people have said, the only reason that I didn't even try was because I was afraid, like, what happens if I leak on the top? And we'd be just like, I mean, that happens all the time. It's not a big deal.
But why you call yourself Shut Up Jason?
Because I talk too much.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you think that porn can have some bad side effect on society? Because, usually it's about putting like extra sexy guys doing such extra wonderful sex that could impact like the human beings mindset about, oh, I'm not good enough.
I don't think porn is any more to blame for that than men's fitness magazines and women's fashion magazines. And I look at the way that we over sexualize children. Like I'm horrified when I hear adults ask children, well, do you have a boyfriend? And I'm like, dude, she's 5. What is wrong with you? Why are you asking those questions?
Okay.
That's something that they do in America. I've never seen that in Canada, but yeah, it's a very weird thing. I mean, people ask me this all the time, and no, I don't think that porn is any more to blame for people's body dysmorphia. In the 1970s, okay, before rock videos, before MTV, you could be old, you could be an adult, you could be ugly, you could, as long as the music was good and you had a good voice, right? You could be a megastar as long as the music was enjoyable. When the 80s rolled around and we had MTV, you now had to be beautiful as well. And in fact, being beautiful was kind of more important than being really that talented. We live in a society that worships beautiful people. And I don't think that the porn industry is any more guilty of that than any other industry.
What about in general sex? Because definitely what you see in porn movies, it's not something that you see in real life, the position, how much time they can handle, whatever.
I mean, I would hope that people understand that this is a movie. Like, I grew up watching horror movies. I grew up watching crime movies. I always understood that it was a movie and that it wasn't real. Maybe some people don't realize that, that scene that takes 25 minutes to spool out when you're watching it, that took us 5 hours to shoot that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stopping. There's a lot of starting. There's a lot of, okay, the bottom's going to go touch up, so we need to move the lights around. Oh, let's do our still pictures now. Let's go back and take a look at the footage that we just shot. Oh crap, mine's all out of focus. Okay, let's fix that and go back again. That's just going to happen.
Do you Google yourself?
Yes. Just out of curiosity, just to see what pops up. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's always that fucking picture with me with the dick in my mouth.
Wonderful. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Google. Somebody want to approach the porn industry? Suggestion, things to avoid, something to say no, advance, or something to do to become successful. Do you have any suggestion or tips?
I think that one of the most important things to do when you're talking about this industry is you have to accept the fact that if this was easy, everybody would do it. It's not easy on your personal life. It's not easy on your body. It's not easy on your sleep patterns. This is not all just pool parties and award shows. Always maintain a good home life. Try to make sure that you don't just hang out with people from the industry. Always use a porn name. I made that mistake.
Okay.
Always use one so you can keep your two lives separate, because you're going to really appreciate the ability to disappear into your personal persona. If anybody approaches you and says that they want to shoot, if they do not pass the smell test, just ghost them. They said, oh, well, for your first scene, you don't get paid for your first scene because it's your audition. And I'm like, oh, hell no. No, if somebody's trying to get you to do free work, that's someone taking advantage of you.
Okay. Do people recognize you? Hello,
Yes.
Jason. Okay, of
Oh,
course.
all the time, all the time.
Oh,
It's
really?
happened a lot more recently, and
Because we talk?
probably because of TikTok. Yeah.
Okay.
My band was playing at the Eagle a couple weeks ago, and we walked in. I was there with the keyboardist from my band, and we're walking together. And before we even made it to the stage, like 8 people had come up and gone, "Oh my God, you're Jason! You're this such and such!" And he just looks at me and he's like, "Were you gonna tell me that you're like an international celebrity?" And I'm like, "Shut up." You know, kind of funny, but yeah, I get recognized all the time. One of the most common comments that people say is that I'm shorter than they thought. People will look at me, and every so often someone will go, "Wow, you look like a short Jason Mark," and I'll just go,
Fuck you, people. Yeah.
"Yeah."
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, before closing, can you give us any preview about next movie you're gonna release?
So there is a movie called Highway that I co-directed with Devin Franco for Fetish Force. The opening 3 minutes of it are straight out of like a sort of Tarantino type movie.
Okay.
And everybody that I show this to, including my friends who, you know, work in Hollywood, they're all looking at it going, "This is amazing." I'm really excited by the fact that Falcon has really allowed us to start just getting as creative as we want, having a really great time doing neat stuff like that.
Thank you a lot, Jason, for being my guest. I really appreciate
Well,
your time.
thanks so much for inviting me. Anytime you want me back, I'm more than happy to do it. So,
Thank you, guys.
yeah, thank you.